Nice to be here. This is the third time I'm here in a PCF forum, and some of you will certainly have heard parts of this presentation before. There are some new things that I'll be presenting, so I hope you all will be satisfied in some way. There's a leaflet describing the initiative. It's in the table in the back that you can take and to look at. There's some contact information in the back, and please get back to me if there's any comments. I need to tell you something first about Svenskt Sigill, which is my organization where I work. It's a third-party certification system and a label that's offered in Sweden that certifies Swedish food production, animal welfare, food security, and environmental protection. It's benchmarked to the global GAP system, and as you can see from the number of producers, it's still quite small, but we cover the whole food sector. I think with the exception of fish, actually, but it's because we are an agricultural initiative. And we have been active for 10 years, so it's also quite a young system. Now, climate certification, in 2006, we got to know that this was a survival issue. 3 Swedish ministers for environment, agriculture, and consumers had a hearing in 2007. And that was the time when Svenskt Sigill, my organization, and Krav, which certifies organic production, went home and cooked up a project to do a climate labeling project at that time. Since then, the project has changed perspectives, so we now have a purpose to develop a climate certification. The first thing we did was to sort out what are we going to do in this project, and we looked at the different possibilities for carbon footprinting, climate declarations, and we decided not to go for such a system because we thought at that time, 2007, the market was not mature. There were a couple of strong obstacles that we decided to avoid them by creating a climate certification based on criteria. And the beauty of this system is that it's constructed so that it can be integrated into existing systems, which gives us a short starting, distance. It gets us quickly on the ground. So it can be used as an add-on to existing systems, or the criteria can be integrated into existing systems. And as I said, it's a third-party certification, and it's criteria-based. Our deliverables are 3, and I think the certification system is one thing that we deliver, the criteria. We also have a quite strong scientific background, and you can see the Swedish stones in the bottom there symbolize our strong scientific basis. But I think the most important result that we deliver is the processes that we have initiated with the dialogue with the Swedish food sector and what is happening right now in the Swedish food sector. Because at the start of our project, there was an enormous hesitancy. And now for at least 1 or 2 years, we have been seeing an opening it's now easy to discuss these questions, and the major food companies are now saying to us that they think this is an important step forward, and this is something that they would like to promote. Now, we haven't heard exactly how, but we are looking forward to that. But that was not possible when the project was started. It's not only us, I think it's the development in the whole sector that has been doing this, but we have been a part of this in Sweden. So it's not a carbon footprint certification. It doesn't help the consumer to choose between, for example, meat and vegetables. This has been one of the strong criticisms against us, that we confuse the consumers. We usually respond to that we are not the only system that the consumer should use to get information about the climate, but this is one tool that they can use. If they want to eat meat, then they can eat the best meat. The system covers the whole food chain, and now there are criteria for all of these, criteria packages for all of these different components. And we are currently working on the imports, which I will tell you about in a bit. It's a system that is a mix, in a sense, of performance indicators and raising the competence and achieving continuous improvements. So we have, for example, limits of soy and fodder, energy mapping, and farm-specific measures. There's a whole package, and I think actually the whole criteria document is right now 60 pages, so it's a bit too long, but it's because it has all of the different packages. It's also a system that gives many a chance to make improvements, and we decided not to make it a spearhead system, but rather a broad system to bring many farmers into the system to make improvements. We still have to balance this against that we need to communicate to consumers that there actually are improvements, but we are a broad system rather than a spearhead. Improvement, I already told you about. It stimulates improvements and the development of methods on the farm. We need still to do a lot more work on the simplification process. Transparency we have no problem with, but the simplification is a big challenge. And on a dairy farm, we mainly work with these three areas. The farming operations, there we work with energy efficiency and eco-driving. Plant production is mainly geared towards nitrogen management. And the animal husbandry has to do with healthy animals and fodder. And I won't go into these different categories. You can all, if there's any specific question, you can approach me afterwards, but these are the areas that we set up criteria for. And I think one deliverable of this project is also that the criteria are possible to integrate into a certification system. We have had a lot of, how do you say, conflicts of interest here. And one of the conflicts of interest was to develop criteria that are possible to certify on a farm. We have a long list of criteria that were put out because they were not possible to certify. We have to be able to send out an auditor to do this. All of this will be presented in a report that is coming at the end of the middle of next year. We're summarizing our experiences, and we're going to be translating this into English. But right now, there's English information on the website through the criteria and the background reports, but not so much stuff that describes our process, which is actually the most interesting part. Now, for transport, we set a limit of emissions of carbon dioxide for 250 grams of carbon dioxide per kilo transported product, including the package that is closest to the product. For example, this one, but not the bigger packages that these are included in. And we also developed a perspective that we would help countries with a low human development index to come into this system. So we set a lower threshold value for these countries. We didn't set such a high ambition for processing and packaging. The main reason here is that the big climate effect is in the primary production. And to put big obstacles in this step would be to inhibit the possibilities of the primary producers to do something. So we have quite moderate ambitions here. We just stimulate raised knowledge with a functioning criteria for small and large enterprises. And you see some of the examples that we work with: food waste, energy efficiency, and so on. Now, when we come to the imported products, this has been quite difficult. How to certify something that is imported to Sweden from abroad, and the scope here is quite big. We developed three options: certification according to the original standard, which is developed for Nordic European conditions. We also are developing a saying that you can do a local adaptation of this standard, but then this and this and this and this should be included. So we're like making condensation of our work, which is like a minimum baseline level, which we think should be included. And we also have developed, as I said before, the countries with a low human development index, they generally produce agricultural products with a lower input of energy and with a lower climate impact. So we give them a direct certification path into the project, given certain conditions. They must have a group certification in their home country and certain other things that we put up as specifics. But this has not been tested in real life, and that's a problem for us. Now, when it comes to testing things in real life, when I was here last year, I could show you this one. It's certified, climate-certified milk. It was the first one. And since then, we have had quite a long journey. Quite a few different types of products have been on board. Ham, pork, meat, greenhouse vegetables, frozen vegetables, which Einar will be speaking about in a minute, and flowers. These two systems, Svenskt Sigill and Krav, are the ones who are implementing climate criteria. And I want to shortly mention to you what is happening, because Svenskt Sigill is moving forward with a voluntary climate certification with this little add-on which says klimatcertifierad. Krav has decided to integrate climate criteria in the Krav label, but they are not making this voluntary. That means it goes slower, and they are right now developing a communication where climate is not emphasized. Climate is only one component of sustainable food production. So this, therefore, they don't speak about the Krav label being a climate certification label anymore. And this is a recent development, and that's kind of new. This is interesting, I think, from many points of view, to see what happens when you try to introduce this in a voluntary way or in a mandatory way, or for conventional agriculture and organic agriculture. These are some of the products that have been certified, and we are looking we have a couple of more products in line. The most interesting is our certification of beef. That will cause a lot of interesting discussions, I think, and that will happen this winter. One of the certified companies, they grow herbs and as lettuce in a package like this, and this is the label here. Their chief executive officers say that this is really important for them, and they are starting to calculate how much they lowered their climate effect by this project, and they are also communicating figures. So here you can see it's not they use this system, but they still communicate their level of improvement, which is also quite interesting. And we have an interesting road ahead. We, Svenskt Sigill, are continuing to promote this system, and we're working to get more and more producers to climate certify. And we're also producing a report. As I said, the project is producing a report where we will be summarizing our experiences. Supporting tools is important because we see an enormous enormous obstacle when it comes to getting more producers on board. There's a level of competence that needs to be raised. So supporting tools is important. We also need to do this, which we haven't quite done yet, establish a long-term ownership for this criteria that we have developed. And that will happen in the year to come. We also need to learn from the ongoing certification processes. So we are going to be out there with the auditors and the farmers to document what is happening. And what we are doing right here, the international synchronization. As I said before here, we are part of a global food chain. This is quite a small initiative. It's quite interesting, but we really, really need to connect up with international stakeholders to get this to be synchronized, to get this to be implemented together with international alternatives. And that is something that I'd like to send home with you. Think about that and see if this is something that could be interesting for you. I would like to thank you, and I would like to also say that we're quite proud to be bringing the next speaker along with us, because for many years it's only been me, but for now we have actually a representative from those who are doing the work.